I could not see hope for the future. So I intentionally overdosed on my anxiety medication because I just didn't even want to be here anymore. And I spent a day and a half unconscious in my bathroom. I spent another day and a half in the hospital. And after I was released from the hospital, I called a friend and told her everything that happened. And I ended with, I can't believe I didn't die.
Hello, my loves. This is Johanna Burkhart. I am a multidimensional channel, teacher, healer, and author. And I am obsessed with all things metaphysical, esoteric, galactic, and of course, the healing journey. And I'm here to share my stories, my wisdom, and my teachings about being human in the illusion that we call reality. Welcome to Cosmic Blonde. Hello, my loves. You're going to have to bear with my voice today. It is a little bit strained, but today we have a beautiful guest named Angie Hawkins. She is an inner glow coach who transforms high-achieving spiritual women from chasing love and approval to radiating fierce confidence as they can finally feel free, happy, and loved for who they are. She works with women who've done therapy, read the books, tried the spiritual path, but still feel like something's missing. Through deep inner work and identity transformation, she helps them break the cycle of not feeling enough so that they can experience real love, confidence, and peace without having to change who they are. She is the author of Running in Slippers, which I love that title, a raw and vulnerable memoir about finding resilience after emotional rock bottom. Welcome, Angie.
Thank you, Joanna. Thank you for
So,
having me.
I'm so happy that you are here. Well, let's start. Just kind of tell us your story. Kind of tell us where you were before, then what led you into this transformation to who you are today.
So, my story begins in childhood. I was raised in a home. I think the best way to describe it is both of my parents were emotionally unavailable. And as an adult, I understand what that means. But as a child, I didn't have the tools to make sense of the situation. So, the way I interpreted it was I felt like I didn't deserve to be loved. So, I developed that belief starting from an early age. And as you are probably aware, your beliefs dictate your behaviors, which
Yeah.
dictate what you experience in the world. So, needless to say, I struggled for a very long time because I was a people pleaser. I was always chasing after love and approval, and outside of myself, I thought I had to perform for love and approval. And it's just a very exhausting way to live. And I never felt happy or fulfilled, yet I didn't really understand why and that I was actually contributing to the situation with that belief. And where things started to change was in 2017. My boyfriend broke up with me, and then my dad passed away. So I was plummeted into profound grief. And I was 37 years old at the time, and I had spent 37 years running away from my feelings. So this was the first time in my life where it was impossible to repress or run away from my feelings, and I was forced to face them. But because I had been avoiding them, I did not have the tools for emotional regulation. So I basically just felt like shit because that was in the beginning of 2017. So, like the rest of the year, I just felt like shit. And adding to that, we live in a just get over it society. So after a few months, people were just expecting me to be over it. So I was like, again, I was like performing and putting on this mask that everything was okay, and it wasn't. So then finally at the beginning of 2018, I decided like, okay, I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired. I want to make some changes in my life. I was living in Chicago at the time, so I decided I want to move to Hawaii, which was well intentioned in the sense that I was proactively doing something about my life, but it wasn't well intentioned in the sense that I was still searching for things outside of myself to be the thing that made me feel better. Because again, I
Right.
knew I wasn't happy and fulfilled, so I was still reaching outside of myself for that love. And so I moved to Hawaii, and you can't move away from your problems. So, of course, nothing changed. And not only that, I not only did I have all the same problems, I developed a whole new host of problems. So, for example, this was in 2018. It was before remote working was the trendy thing to do. And my job, fortunately, was very generous and said I could keep my job and work remote. But right when I moved, there was this huge management shakeup that threatened my role. So the first year that I lived here, I lived in constant fear of losing my job. I also had a really hard time making friends, which was something that I had never dealt with in Chicago. So it just felt very isolating and lonely to be thousands of miles away from anyone I knew and not to have any friends or like social interaction at all, especially since I was working remotely. And then the other major thing that happened right off the bat was I, to prove how committed and all in I was on my decision, I bought a condo immediately. But then a month after I bought my condo, a shared pipe backflowed into my bathroom and I wasn't home. So my entire condo flooded. So
Oh,
this was like within the first few months of moving. So then the next 2 years was just like thing after thing after thing. Like my grandma died, and it was just always something happening. And because I was reaching for things outside of myself to make me happy, and the things outside of myself were unraveling, my internal world was unraveling that entire time. And then COVID happened, so I don't think I have to explain why
no.
that exacerbated the situation. But then the straw that broke the camel's back was the end of a relationship during COVID because at that point I was just like, I can't take this anymore. And I feel like we all have moments in our life like that because that's not the first time I felt like that.
Yeah.
But the difference was I also had this layer of hopelessness because nothing had been going well. I could not see hope for the future. So I intentionally overdosed on my anxiety medication because I just didn't even want to be here anymore. And I spent a day and a half unconscious in my bathroom. I spent another day and a half in the hospital. And after I was released from the hospital, I called a friend and told her everything that happened. And I ended with, I can't believe I didn't die. And her response was, it's not your time. And that was so
I
profound.
had
Yeah,
chills when you said
exactly what
that.
I needed to hear. Yeah, it gave me chills at the time. And anytime I tell this story, it's just like, oh my God, because that's exactly what I needed to hear. Because I was like, okay, I'm going to get help and get help the right way and actually truly make changes in my life, starting from the
Yeah.
inside.
I I I know we had our pre-interview, but I just still am blown away at how similar our stories are. They're a little
Yeah.
rearranged, but it just goes to show you that you think you're alone in going through what you're going through, and you're not. Because when I'm listening to you tell your story again, I'm like, that's my story. Like that was my story, and I just want people to know that, that here we are, we met randomly, you're on my show, and we have almost an identical story. So, whatever you're going through, one, you're not alone. There is someone out there going through the same thing. But two, did somebody find you in the bathroom or you just woke up?
So I was blacked out, but somehow I managed to text a friend, and it was a different friend than the one I called. But to me, that just goes to show because my brain and my heart were not in a good place.
Yeah,
But I think your soul really knows what it wants because obviously my soul wanted to save me.
yeah.
So I had somehow managed to text a friend and she took me to the hospital. Yeah, because I'm not really sure what would have happened if I didn't do that. And
Yeah, and who knows
also,
what kind of divine intervention helped move your body to do that.
well, and also, my dad is in spirit because he died in
Yeah,
2017. And I strongly feel like he played a role in that because it's
absolutely.
like, yeah, I honestly find it miraculous, especially like I was blacked out. I was so out of it. And then I remember I checked my phone because I was like, what could I have possibly texted her?
Yeah,
And it was just like it wasn't really coherent. I think I told her that I was like needed to call an ambulance, but it was like it wasn't even a complete sentence and it was
yeah.
like incoherent. And she called me. So apparently we had a brief conversation on the phone. And then she also came to pick me up. And I was like, how was I even standing up? And she was like, you were not doing very well at all. So I was blacked out the entire time.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Wow. I mean, and when I always go back to when people drink too much and they're blacked out, right? But they're still walking and talking and not usually coherent, but it's spirit. We see negative entities, we'll say, or someone else's attachment take over the body. Like we've actually seen science of how this can actually happen. But when you were saying that, I was thinking, if it can happen that way, it can happen the other way as well, because I'm a trance channel, so I can allow spirit to take over my body. So to me, it felt like spirit, some type of spirit, your father, some type of energy, a guide, like entered your body to help you function almost to some
Yeah.
level.
Because because I didn't have a near-death experience in the way that, like, some people describe, oh, I saw the light and all
Yeah.
that stuff. Again, I was totally blacked out. But yeah, I totally agree with what you
Yeah.
said. Like, for me to actually text someone and, yeah, all of it. Yeah, my dad was probably guiding me the
Yeah.
entire time.
Definitely divine intervention. So what happened after that when you came out of the hospital? Like what was life like for the next few months when you're obviously that person said, it's not your time yet, and that obviously opened something up for you.
Yes, because when I got out of the hospital, and before I even called my friend, I was at this crossroads because not only was the emotional intensity the same as it was before I took the pills, physically, I felt worse because,
Yeah.
again, I had been mostly unconscious for 3 days. I hadn't eaten in 3 days, all the things. So I actually felt worse than I did before I took the pill. So I was kind of at this crossroads because a huge part of me was like, I don't want to be here. I still don't want to be here. And I was kind of angry that my attempt didn't work out. But then when my friend made that comment, and it may seem obvious to other people, well, like if you're survived, then you are meant to be here for a purpose. But I truly don't think I would have came to that conclusion on my own. I needed someone to make like that impactful of a statement
Yeah.
to me to actually like wake me up, so to
Yeah.
speak. And so when she said that, I was like, okay, I think I do have a purpose because I easily could have died. And again, miraculously, I had somehow texted a friend to save me. So I decided I'm going to get help and I'm going to get help the right way. So traditional therapy had never worked for me. So I actually invested in myself and hired a coach. And the first few weeks out of the hospital, life felt so fragile. It's so hard to explain this to other people, but the way I try to explain it is it felt like I was walking around without skin. Like every little thing, I was so sensitive.
Yeah.
Also, there was no veil. So, and I wasn't as spiritual then as I am now. So it was actually really scary to me to be like seeing and hearing and
Yeah.
experiencing things that I wasn't used to in my reality.
Right.
And I'm setting this up to like my very first call with my coach, I'm basically just trying to survive the day. Like that's how fragile my life was. And so I get on this call with this coach. So I'm can only imagine how I was presenting myself to him because I'm just hanging on for dear life. But he asked me if you could do anything and didn't have to worry about money or anything else, what would you do? And I had an idea for a book. And so I started telling him about the book. I was like, I want to write a memoir, but I want it to be really vulnerable and messy because, you go on social media, everything's all filtered and edited. And
I
even in
know.
real life, we're all wearing masks and pretending everything's fine. And I was like, even back then, I was convinced, I'm like, I can't be the only one going through hard shit. Like, I
Yeah.
just knew that wasn't possible. So I was like, I want to write this book that's really vulnerable so that people know that they're not alone. And then I want to go on speaking tours so that we have safe places like this to
Yeah.
talk about these experiences so people know that they're not alone. And as I finished, he was like, do you realize how lit up you just got when you told me that? And I did again, because I was like hanging on for dear life at the
Yeah.
beginning. And when I was telling him about this vision, like I did get really excited. And so, I did work with him, but that was a process. So I was like, in the short term, while I am making these emotional changes in my life, I was like, I'm going to start writing this book. And so that actually gave me a sense of purpose in the time that I was working with my coach. And then I eventually ended up publishing it, and that is Running with Slippers.
That's amazing. And I'm so fucking happy to hear you say to write a vulnerable, messy book because I mean, I've gotten a little pushback. My third book isn't published yet, but it is very vulnerable, messy. I did not sugarcoat my trauma or what I went through
Yeah,
because I'm like with you, and all the other people out there where you said like read the books. I'm a self-help junkie book reader, and I've always have been. And the thing that always kind of annoyed me was that there was so little talk about what they actually like the real deep shit that they went through. Like,
right.
like it's like great, let me tell you how to fix it, but or a change your perspective. But I think the power in you telling your story or anyone telling their story in the raw, vulnerable and like the truest form is people can heal with you.
Oh, yeah.
They cry with you. They grieve with you. And so as they're listening to your story, they're processing for you almost, but it's also processing for them.
Yeah,
And this is the primary reason why I love having people come on and tell their stories of transformation because I feel like people heal the most through stories.
agree.
And when I know, I'm going to ask you this question too, but like for me, when I wrote my first book that was about my story, it was the process of writing it itself was so healing. So, how was that experience for you?
It's interesting that you say that because usually what people say to me, it's a question like, was it healing for you?
Yeah.
And my answer is no. And it could be because I was writing it as I was healing. So for me, there's actually two parts to this because I also have an audiobook, but with the written book, there were always two parts that I would always cry because when you write your own book, you have to read it a gazillion
Oh
times.
my God, yes.
And also, there were parts I didn't necessarily cry, but they were just so cringy to read because my worst mistakes are in this book. And even before I was fully healed, there were things like, this is so embarrassing it's embarrassing for me to read back to myself, let
Yeah.
alone having other people read about it. So I felt like it was just kind of, in a way, I felt like it delayed my healing process because I had to keep
Okay.
reliving those moments. And then I didn't record the audiobook until like a year later. And then, I mean, did you do an audiobook on any of
I
yours?
haven't just because I'm not in a space where I have enough quiet to do it at
Uh,
home. And so I've been waiting to do it in a studio, and we all know how much that costs. And so
yeah.
I just haven't yet, but I have so many people asking for the audio versions, and I just
Well, the
haven't done
only
it.
reason I ask is because recording an audiobook is a totally different experience because there's something about speaking your story out loud.
Yeah.
There were times that I started crying or had breakdowns at like moments I wasn't even expecting. And again, this was after editing and reading my own book a gazillion times, but it was
Yeah.
like something about the power of speaking it out loud. And I was actually, after I was finished with the whole process, I was depressed for like 3 months afterwards because I think it just like brought up a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
But in a way, I guess that's a long way of saying I think ultimately it did help with my healing process because I had to just keep experiencing it until it no longer had the same emotional intensity.
Right.
But it did bring up a lot of stuff as I was going through the
Yeah.
process with both the written book and the audiobook.
I'll be interested to see how I experience when I do record because my book that I published a few years ago, I'm still going to do an audiobook for it, just because I've had so many requests. But when I wrote my book, I had already done a few years of, I was probably 4 years into healing.
Okay.
But it was healing for me to write it. I had the same feelings though. There was a lot of self-judgment that came up, a lot of
Yeah.
shame, and particularly for me, it was fear because my perpetrators, who were my abusers, are still alive. And while they're
Mm,
not named in the book, if they were to read it, they're going to know who they are. And I
exactly.
had this fear of death, honestly. Like I felt like the one person, like they're going to kill me, if they find this out.
Wow.
And was that like warranted? No, they're not going to do that. But that traces back again to triggering how I felt as a child. Like I'm going to die if I don't do, if I
Um,
upset this person or whatever. But what was interesting, and same thing with you, like reading it over and over and over and over again. And I had an editor, so people coming back to you and you're doing it. I had a little bit of PTSD after I finished that book.
yeah, I think that's a good way to
Yeah,
describe it.
I had PTSD, and my guides kept telling me you gotta write another version of the book. You gotta write another version of the book. Like I'm like the same book. They're like yes, but in a different context. And I didn't understand that for a while, and I was like I'm not doing it right now. I took like 4 years between that one published in Holy Grail published in 22 November 11th 22, and I just finished my third book the beginning of this year, and it's the same story except this time I had done so much more healing that I had no fear and decided I'm going deep into the trauma this time because I didn't do that last time. I kind of skimmed over it.
Mm,
I just kind of went a little into it, not fully. And I spent more time working, teaching people like what I did to heal from it, which is amazing. But I was like, this book's going to be different. This book is going to probably feel a little heavy for people, but they need to experience. I wanted to take them through an experience. And so this book was super easy. The next one was super easy for me to write. But again, this time I didn't have PTSD. And again, the process isn't complete yet, but I, I noticed I didn't cry. I noticed that it was so much easier for me to just let it out. And I've told my story. I've spoken and done a lot of speaking on my story so many times too. That it just went easy. And I was like, I don't really care. I'm going deep, and people really, I deserve and other people deserve to know how dark and messy it can get. To see this version or that version of you, they need to see the extreme of where we came from. Because people don't, everybody's going through something different, but so many people are at rock bottom. And when they see
yeah.
someone else be at rock bottom and be able to stand up, or in my case, crawl, until you could stand, I think that's power. I think that's powerful.
I totally agree because my biggest fear was that I was going to be criticized. Because again, like my worst mistakes are in the book, my lowest moments are in the
Yeah.
book. But anyone who's reached out to me is like, oh, this is so relatable. Or even crazier, I've had people like the most embarrassing things in the book are the ones, the experiences that people reach out about the most. Like, oh, yeah, this
Yeah.
exact same thing happened to me. And so that just goes to show that we all go through the same things. So, yeah, I love that you were willing to go deep because it's scary, but it does help other people and yourself.
And it is in the beginning, it is embarrassing because once I once I figured out my patterns and the cycles that I was putting myself in, I was
Yeah.
like, good Lord, how did I not see this years
I know,
before?
isn't it funny? Because when you're writing it all out, it's like, oh my God, I was such a
Like
mess.
smack in the face. Like, what in the world? Wake up, Johanna.
But
Oh
that's
my goodness.
relatable because there was
Yeah.
one part of my story where I kept going back to this relationship because I couldn't let it go. And I've had so many people be like, oh yeah, that same thing happened to me. And I even ended up, because it was like so long and drawn out, ended up even editing out a huge chunk of that because I'm
Yeah.
like, this is so exhausting because it's just the same thing.
Same
I
shit
think I
over
can
and
get
over
my point
again.
across just by cutting that in half.
Yeah, I didn't even cut that out. I would make little comments like, and yet here we go with another pattern. You
Yeah.
know, because the patterns do show up. I always say like we pull the past forward into new circumstances. So we pull the old energy and it creates a new set of circumstances, but it's the same shit over and over again.
Yeah.
And so people a lot of times think, oh, this is different. Okay, the circumstances are different. But the energy underneath, the core things that make up those circumstances are the same if you're really willing to look at it.
Yeah, and that's why it's so helpful. Like hiring a coach for me changed my life because he
Yeah.
was able to like clearly point those out.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh yeah, he's right.
This episode has been brought to you by Evolve. Evolve is an all inclusive membership designed to help you shift your frequency, so that you can create the reality that you are desiring. We do that through shedding parts of ourselves, identities shaped by trauma, our childhood, and societal beliefs. And we start to align with more of our authentic selves, which is the most magnetic version of us. Utilizing a combination of pre-recorded digital content, which includes 52 plus digital products, 9 full-length digital courses valued well over $5,000, a meditation library, and so much more. It also includes 2 live monthly group Zoom meetings that include hot seat coaching, live channeling, guidance, and of course, community. There is a full price yearly rate bonus, which is a custom binary beats track that is courtesy of Earth's Kiss Alchemy. This is a custom track created with technology that analyzes your voice and creates a binary beats to help realign your frequency back to your highest truth, which is also a $350 value. If you would like to join Evolve and have exclusive access to Johanna Burkhart, please check the link in the description box below. Yeah, I didn't do well with traditional therapy either. I always say, and not that there isn't intuitive or out of the box therapists that have been through life, real life shit and are good. They are out there. I haven't had too many experiences with those ones. But
Same.
I always say, like, for me, therapy, and for a long time, I still had a therapist. But honestly, she was a space for me to audibly dump and hear myself speak in a safe space with someone who wasn't going to judge me. But I mean, that's the real reason I switched from business coaching to healing, doing this kind of spiritual coaching as well, is because I feel like it's not enough. We need people who can see the patterns, who can call it out, who can say, right there, stop, don't keep going. Let's work here. And
Yeah.
I think that's what's really missing in the therapy world.
No, I agree because when I tried therapy, to your point, it's like I could vent for an hour and it
Yeah.
feels good in the moment. But then when I left her office, it's just kind of like, now what do I do?
Yeah.
Whereas like having a coach who was like able to walk me through like, okay, we're having this conversation now, but this is what you can do when you're
Yeah.
on
Here's
your
some
own.
homework. Here's some
Yeah, yeah.
tools. Here's
Like I
some
had
things to
homework every
practice.
single week, and
Yeah.
that's it because again, your beliefs dictate your behaviors. So
Hmm.
he would help me develop new behaviors, and that's what in turn ended up changing my beliefs.
Yeah. And that's the thing. We always focus on, and I love mindset work. I'm a big person of change your thoughts,
Same.
change your reality, but that's one part of the coin. And at the same time, it doesn't always start with mindset. If that's not working for you, then you have to start changing your physical actions. And with enough time of making those physical actions, it's automatically going to change the way that you're programmed.
No, totally agree because my belief that I didn't deserve to be loved was so ingrained that if we started with trying to change that belief, that would have
Yeah.
taken forever. Or it was easier to actually implement behaviors and then over time that actually changed my beliefs.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's why I think the coaching industry is I know it's like trendy now, but and a thing, but if you get the right coach, like our job is for you not to need us anymore. And we have to give you real tools. So for anybody out there who's thinking about hiring a coach, research them, watch them, and at the same time, like if this person isn't giving you the tools, isn't supporting you in the space between, isn't doing those things, they're not the right one for you. Because that's the other thing that's missing from therapy, because I had done some therapy sessions that would dredge shit up. And then it's like, oh, time's up. And now
Yeah.
you're left an emotional wreck. And it's like, no, you can't do that. That's not helpful either.
Completely agree because again, how I was saying before, I didn't have the tools for emotional regulation at all until I was like 40. And like to your point, same thing would happen to me in traditional therapy. Yeah, like brings up all this stuff and then I would leave like, okay, now what do I do? Because I
Okay,
hate
now I'm a
feeling this
train wreck.
way.
Thanks for bringing all this
Yeah.
shit up for me to And yes, you got our emotional release, but this is why it's such a big deal about nervous system regulation, about energy regulation, emotional regulation. And none of us were taught this as children. I have never met anyone who's like, oh, my mom taught me how to do that, or my dad taught me how to, I really haven't. I mean, there's some people out there that are well adjusted, but didn't have a hard life, but most of us, we had no direction because we grew up in generations where everything was swept under the rug.
Yep. I know, and like actually making friends with my feelings and feeling my feelings changed my entire life because I
Yeah.
used to have chronic anxiety and and again, I was contributing to it because if I felt an anxiety attack coming on, I would like get all scared and
Yeah.
because I wanted to
You
resist
get
it
in
and push it
resist it.
away.
Yeah.
I didn't want to feel it, but actually feeling it moves through it a lot faster.
Yep.
And also in feeling it, you realize, because again, it all goes back to questioning everything you do and why you do it. So then you start to realize your own patterns, like why you're feeling that way. So then over time, you actually, like, I still have anxiety, but it's not chronic like it used to be because I'm
Yeah.
actually dealing with the root issues as they
Right.
come along.
Yeah. Yeah, Louise Hay, you got to feel it to heal it, baby. You got to
Yeah.
feel it to heal it. And one of the things that I do for me is because there's this misconception that we do this work, even though we're coaches, we're authors, we've done this, that we still don't have triggers or we still don't have emotions that arise or things. If those things don't show up, you're not in growth, right? Because every time you expand, a new set of things are going to appear that were always there, you just couldn't see before. But so when things come up for me, I give myself permission. Like if I'm angry or I'm sad, I always like rub my leg and I'm like, you know what? It makes sense that you feel that way. It's okay to feel that way. I give myself permission because in my childhood, I wasn't allowed to have emotions. It's like if you're going
Same.
to be emotional, you have to go in your room and isolate. And so what do? We grow up and we shut down, we isolate ourselves, we don't tell our friends, we don't ask for help, and we just suppress, suppress, suppress. And then we go through these big events that aren't coincidences, they're divine. You had to get to that place that broke you open so much that you started to experience the energy of what the real world is, right? And feeling all of yourself and how powerful and infinite you are, while also having to process all these emotions that are also arising that you had repressed for so long. And I just want to commend you. And I always commend anybody who has these kind of stories because I know what it's like. It's literally like walking through an inferno. You feel like you're burning to death. You feel like you're dying constantly.
Yeah.
And to get out the other side, people who walk through the inferno, they carry the brightest light. And we had to go through those things to show people that there's life on the other side if you can just stop fighting with it and yourself and face yourself, love yourself, give yourself permission, stop judging yourself. And I feel like that is the real mission here. And I feel like that's why you had to go through that was to break you open.
No, I agree because you've probably got this question too. Sometimes people ask me like if you could go back and change something or if you could go back and give yourself advice, like
Yeah,
in other words, like probably a warning signal. But my answer is I wouldn't change anything because as hard as the things that I've been through were, like that made me who I am today. And
exactly.
I wouldn't change that for anything because
Um,
like my self-love and like the things that I never had growing up are so strong now and yeah, I would have had that without my experiences.
Not only that, because I'm right there with you, and I wouldn't take it all back either or change anything. But it also erases the good that was there, because we focus so much when you go through a healing journey, you tend to remember the bad things. You tend to remember the heavy things. And then once you feel those things, and I can only speak for myself and some of my clients, but when you feel those things and you start to heal it and process it and accept it into your heart, you start to remember the good things that also happened that were hidden behind the darkness, hidden behind the heaviness.
That is such a good point because the good thing that came out of me almost dying was really embracing my intuition because I knew I had it, but I would always ignore it.
Yeah,
But then I learned that there is this other realm. And once I learned I could tap into that, not only does it help me because, my level of self-trust is off the charts. Like I used to be the kind of person like I would feel so unconfident making decisions. I would have to ask for everyone else's opinion or read my horoscope or whatever because I didn't trust my
Yeah.
own decision making. But now it's like I'm so tapped into my intuition that my self-trust is solid. But not only that, it's really helped with my relationship with my dad because we were not close when he was alive. Because he was an alcoholic, and also in hindsight, I think he was depressed. And, those
Most
are
alcoholics are.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm sure he had other issues, but those are earthly issues. So his
Yeah.
soul is
Free of
completely
that.
different, and we're like best friends now. So it's also brought me closer to my dad.
Yes, and I had the same experience. Like it brings you closer to not just like you said, your higher self, your intuition, that knowing, but it connects you to the loved ones, and other spiritual beings that are there. And you start to realize that we don't ever die, that we just change form, that this is all a dream, and that we can create this dream. We can change the dream. We can manipulate it and in a good way and create it into what we would prefer to experience, but we had to be willing to let go of what we did not want to experience.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think it's an amazing lesson because so many see death as an ending,
Yeah,
and it's
it's
just
not.
a different relationship.
Yeah, you just shed your human, meat suit, as I like to call it. You just shed
Yeah.
your meat suit and, you change form, but we have to remind ourselves that we're not these bodies. We're a soul, we're a spirit having a human experience. This is a temporary vehicle. And we're going to live well beyond this experience. So for me, really, it's one thing to hear that and be like, yeah, yeah, yeah. But it's different when you fully embody that understanding. Because then for me, when I'm having times that today that are still difficult, or things that come up that trigger me, I always remember like this is just a dream. This is a temporary experience. Why not make the best of it instead of dwelling on what's not working?
Yeah.
I'm only here for a short time. I don't know if I'm going to come back. Might as well just, have find the things that I do enjoy and focus on that. And I think it takes you getting to a certain space in your life to really just decide like I'm not going to stress out about this. I'm not going to dwell on this. And I'm not saying bypass anything, right? This is not a
Yeah.
bypassing. You have to feel, you got to be present with yourself, but don't fucking camp there. Be like, okay, let me stop. Let me feel. All right, let me get back on the trail because there's a lot of beauty to see left.
Yeah, I actually swung to the other side of the pendulum because I went through a dark night of the soul, and it was like I was questioning the entire meat suit existence. Like, what are we doing here?
Yeah.
Why? This is so ridiculous. But then I swung back to the middle, which you just described it perfectly. It's just like this acceptance of what is.
Yeah.
And also, to your point, what you were saying, I just started having this different appreciation for life because I feel like I didn't used to do fun things or things for myself. So now I have
Right.
a daily practice of doing at least one thing that brings me joy because it's like, yeah, why not enjoy it while I'm here?
Yeah, exactly. I always like to reference the Disney movie Soul.
I've never seen it.
Oh my gosh, please watch it. It's I don't know, to me, and maybe it's because of who I am and what I've been through in the spiritual and what I know about consciousness. But that movie is all about like this person thinking they're living their purpose and chasing after things and chasing after success and accomplishment, only to come back and realize that the leaf falling through the rays of the sun, the breeze blowing, a child laughing, it was like he became present with those things. And it was like, this is what my soul came to experience. My soul
Oh,
didn't
that's so
come,
beautiful.
yeah, my soul didn't come to be this famous pianist. I think he was a pianist.
Yeah.
This famous person or whatever, because I think we've been programmed by, I don't think I know, we've been programmed by society. You got to work hard. You got to be successful. You got to climb the ladder. You got to do these things. And while, yes, I want to be a leader in the world, you want to be a leader in the world, we're putting books out, we're doing these amazing things. At the end of the day, that's not what defines why we're here. It's like you're here to be a living example, to enjoy life, to enjoy the experience, to be in the moment. And when you see them realize it in that moment, it's such a powerful thing. And so for that, there's not I don't like to promote Disney or a lot of those things, but that movie what is amazing. And that's the kind of stuff we need to be subconsciously programming our children with. This is it.
Yeah, or have you ever listened to Tony Robbins?
I used to. I don't really listen to him too much today, but in the
Same,
beginning
but
I
when I
did.
used to listen to him, he would always talk about like your purpose should be rooted in service to others because when it's like how you were describing that, it made me think of this because when it's rooted in like me achieving and
Yes.
performing and this, then it's you centered and you're never really fulfilled. But when
Yeah.
you're actively giving outside of yourself, that's what causes happiness and fulfillment.
Yeah. And that's true too. I mean, think about, I mean, being, I don't know about you, but being in this industry, coaching, podcasting, book writing, all of it, it's not an easy path to walk.
Yeah.
It's not an easy path to walk. And if you're not rooted in service, if you're not rooted in why you're doing this, it's not to me, you won't be successful. Success comes from being rooted in service.
I completely agree.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because otherwise, why else are you doing it? Because I can do this by myself and not share it with anybody.
Yeah, but like, have you come across other coaches who you just can tell they're all about the money?
Yeah, very easily.
Yeah.
And not in the beginning, I'll tell you, not in the beginning. In the beginning, I got duped a couple of times. And I was like you, I went all in. I hired, I mean, I've spent, 7,000, 15,000 on coaches, and not all of them were bad experiences, but I had a couple that I was like, this was a complete waste of money and my time because you're full of shit.
Yeah.
You're full of shit, and you probably learned something or read something, and or you're just, or what they do is, some of them, I had one that they just continuously want you to need them to keep you paying them. And I'm like, I'm the opposite. I have a cap on how many times you can do private mentorship with me. I have a cap on those things. And that's why I quit doing psychic mediumship readings, because I was like, these people just want the answers. I want to teach them how to find the answers because this is exhausting.
Yeah. And that's the whole point, right? Like
Yeah.
you want to be self-sufficient eventually. You
Yeah.
should. That should be the point.
Yeah. I feel like coaching should be rooted in teaching people self-leadership, because if you can't
Yeah.
lead yourself, you sure as hell can't lead anybody else.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And also, it just goes back to the whole thing of like reaching for things outside of yourself to be the thing that makes you feel better. Like, we want
Yeah.
to teach people, like, you're the thing that makes you feel better. Anything
Yeah.
outside of that is just icing on the cake.
Yeah, I've had a saying that the spirit's been saying a lot to me lately. So you guys who are listening have probably heard me say it 100 times by now, but it's like your state of being is what creates anything.
Yes,
Your circumstances create nothing.
that is
They
absolutely
just
true.
exist. So you can focus on your circumstances, and then your circumstances are just there. They're just going to continue. Or you can focus on your state of being and create a different reality. And so and anybody who is trying to teach you, like especially, oh, good Lord, the manifesting industry, anybody who's teaching you, like, do this spell, do this, do that, like this, write this 35 times a day, that's not going to work. It's not going to work. You have to
Yeah.
focus on how you want to feel, right? And again, not to bypass not feeling the other stuff, but you feel that and you say, okay, well, what would I rather feel? Or how do I want to feel? There are ways to help invoke that. And that's the powerful thing, is we always have to come back to, you are the only thing you're in control of is your state of being, how you feel.
And like for me, and I know a lot of people are probably like this or have been like this, I used to feel like I didn't have control over how I felt because my emotions were so overwhelming. So again, that's why like learning the tools for emotional
Yeah.
regulation are so life-changing because once you get that under control, everything changes.
Everything changes. So what were some of the things you wrote the book? What are some of the things that you began to do to help you really heal?
A lot of it was just behavior based. Like, so for example, I used to have zero boundaries. So actually starting to have a healthy practice of enforcing boundaries completely changed my life because there was so much energy leakage because I was
Yes.
giving myself to other people and other situations and not getting anything in return. And again, because I didn't have the emotional regulation, I wasn't doing like I do now, at least one thing a day that brings me joy. It was just like I was constantly depleted. So just having that, you know, emotional and sometimes even physical safety that I was giving myself was huge. Like so many reasons for
Yeah.
self-respect, self-trust, preserving my own energy, preserving my time. So boundaries were huge. Developing my intuition was huge, which I actually didn't do that work through my coach. It was divine timing. Like 3 or 4 months after my attempt, I was invited to be part of an intuition group. And at the time, I was just kind of like, I was still pretty raw in life. So I was like, I just need something. So, and again, this was during COVID. So I was like, I just want to need something and want to be around people. But then that ended up changing my life because I was like, whoa, like we all have this magic and all we need to do is plug it in.
Yeah.
So was instrumental in my healing process. But it was mostly just implementing these behavior changes. And that in turn showed me, like, yeah, I do deserve to be treated a certain way. I do deserve this. I do deserve to be happy. And over time, I just remember because I used to spend a majority of my life feeling unhappy and unfulfilled. And there wasn't like a moment where everything changed. I just remember eventually it got to the point where I was feeling happy and fulfilled most of the time. And to your point, that doesn't mean I never feel sad or angry or
Yeah.
triggered or whatever. It just means I can respond to those situations better. But I just remember once I started feeling happy most of the time, it was just so enlightening because I never even thought that that was available to me
Right.
because I always felt like shit all of the time. And I was like, oh my God, this, and which is another reason I share my story. Because if you are feeling unhappy and unfulfilled most of the time, trust me, trust me, trust me, there is something better available for you. Because in my whole coaching program, it's called Shine from the Inside because the premise is based on we're all born with this light inside of us, but as we go through society or whatever, it slowly starts getting dimmed. And self-help books or other things, I feel like a lot of time they're marketed as fixing yourself or changing
Right.
something, but it's really just about rekindling that light and becoming more of who you are.
Yeah. That's why I loved when I was reading your bio, you talked about identity. And that's my big thing right now. That's what I'm focusing on in my Evolve community is I call it identity shifting. It's more of a shedding, but it's impossible to have a human experience without having identities, which are, your personality, your behaviors, those types of things. But it's about aligning to the most authentic identity that you can, which is, as close as your soul's truth as possible. That's when you're going to be the brightest, the most authentic. And we have to realize that our trauma, our experiences, our behaviors, they shape and create identities. And you have to be willing to let go of those versions of you. And it is in that shedding. It's like, for me, it's like I always see our inner light as like barricaded behind all these baggages and walls that we've created. It's always there. And that's why oftentimes when we do get to that edge of self-deleting or maybe a traumatic accident or something, it creates a crack. At the very minimum, you're going to get a crack. And in that crack, you're going to start to feel and see light that you didn't know was there. And I usually find that that's why these experiences happen for us. So we can realize, oh, there is something else here that I didn't know. And now we can start, demoing, and releasing all of those blockages and just let more and more and more light in. And it's a beautiful process. It really is. But man, those identities, they're not like you're never the same person twice. Like you're then tomorrow you're going to be a different person. It's crazy to me when you think about it. So it's so important to learn to let go, to learn to let go of old stories, old identities, old things, because you're not the same person. You're not that child anymore. And you can we have so much more power than I think anybody gives us credit for.
You described that so
Oh,
beautifully
thanks.
because no, that's exactly what it feels like. And also through my healing journey, I had to grieve, and this has happened many times. I had to grieve old identities of
Yeah.
myself because you do have to let that go. And it's hard because it's part of who you were.
Yeah.
And even though you're onto something better and you're becoming a better version of yourself, it's still hard to let that go. So that was described very beautifully.
Yeah, thank you. For me, I mean, I always tell people I'm an expert in grief. I've lost so many people, but I said that grieving someone else is one thing, grieving yourself is another. And for me, when I struggled with letting go versions of me, it was because of the people who were in the stories and part of that identity and the experiences. And I always had this weird fear, well, if I let that go, then I won't have those people or I won't have those memories or whatever. So we think it makes us closer to them by holding on, especially like when just going through these massive life upsets like you went through and I went through. And then I realized that the circumstances of what we've been through will never change, but how we view the story does.
Oh, yeah.
And so when I realized that, it's like, okay, I can let go of this identity because I'm just going to see the story and the people in it, the good and the bad, from a different perspective. I'm not losing anything. I'm losing the pain. I'm losing the anxiety. I'm losing the fear. I'm losing the baggage that's intertwined in that, that's weighing me down. But if I can let it go and by letting it go, you're really just accepting it into your heart, just to be clear for those who aren't maybe on the path as far along. But I'm like, oh, it's actually easier to look at it. It's easier to remember it. It's easier to talk about it because I'm seeing it from a completely different perspective, but I didn't lose anything. But I think that's a lot of fear that people have is if, well, if I let go of this version of me, I got to let go of all these things, and that's just not true. They're still there. You're just going to see it clearer. You're going to see it maybe through a little bit more rose-colored glasses.
Yeah. Or even, I don't know if you've had this experience because I did lose friends on my healing journey, but they were replaced by people who were healthier and better friends for
Yeah.
me. So even if
Yeah.
you do seemingly lose things, it's just making space for something that's a better match for you.
Yeah, especially when you were talking about boundaries. I'll tell you what, when you spent your life being a people pleaser or a performer to because you feel like that's the only way somebody will think you're enough or love you, it is wild how many people you lose.
Yep,
And it hurts. It does. And you
it
grieve
does.
those relationships, you grieve what could have been. But God, the universe, whatever you want to call it, they never give you anything or take anything from you. Um, that isn't serving you, right? They only do this because it's serving you. It's happening for your benefit. And for me, my circle went from this huge circle of all of these people to very tiny. I mean, I started with like one person and then it grew,
Yeah.
and now, like you, I went through a period of time where I didn't have any friends. And a lot of us, not all of us, go through a period of almost isolation where you're just kind of alone. You're like a lone wolf. When I started making friends again, I was shocked at the quality of the people that I was calling in.
Because they're so different.
They're so different. And there's true reciprocity. There's true consideration. There's
Yeah.
true caring, and that in itself can sometimes trigger people the same way if you've had a lifetime like I have of calling in toxic partners, and then you meet someone who's healthy, that shit will trigger you because it's not what's familiar is the bad stuff. What's familiar is the roller coaster, the inconsistency, the toxicity, sometimes even abuse. And when you meet someone, it's almost like I remember the first time I had a healthy relationship experience. It was like I felt like I was always testing him. Are you sure? Are you sure you're this guy? Are you sure you're this guy? And now I don't do that, but it tests you because it makes you have to stop, you have to pause, you have to respond, you have to regulate your emotions. you have to do those different things. So I sometimes even now today when I have friends that do things, I always just kind of instead of arguing or not arguing, what's the right word? Telling them, oh no, don't do that, or whatever, you know what I mean? Deflecting, trying to push it away, not trying to accept it. Now I fully receive, and I'll take a moment and be like, gosh, this is so amazing. This is so wonderful. Because I don't feel like we do enough of that either. I feel like in the healing world, we've been taught to sit and feel our, when things are triggered or bad, but we also have to teach people that when things are good, when you're in gratitude, when you're in appreciation, when you're feeling love, when you're feeling happy, when you're feeling peace, to just remind yourself, like, yes, this is what this feels like. This is amazing. And to really cement it in and let that imprint take hold that makes your body be able to go back into it very easily.
Yeah, I love that because I don't feel like I do that enough because to your point, I think there are moments where I recognize like, oh, I'm so grateful for this person because I didn't used to have people like that, but I could definitely be doing that more.
Yeah. And so, I mean, it's a beautiful thing. So I always say it doesn't matter what your emotions are when you're feeling it, really be present with it. Really acknowledge, like, wow, this is what I'm feeling right now. This is awesome. This is amazing, because it will be super helpful. Um, so tell our audience what's a couple of things that somebody could do right now, in your opinion, or your expertise, I should say, who's not feeling enough, who doesn't feel worthy, who is still trying to people please and perform to achieve those things?
There's so many things. Again, it starts with behavior change because any of those behaviors, people pleasing, chasing, performing, they're based on a certain limiting belief that you have in your mind. And it's
Right.
probably along the lines of you don't feel worthy or you're not important. But so if that's the case, because again, this is just general, and there's so many things I could say, but if I just had to narrow it down to a few things, number one, boundaries. I like can never talk about boundaries enough because again, that is the highest form of self-respect.
Yeah.
And I remember my biggest fear, I was always afraid that I would sound bitchy or people wouldn't like me if I set a boundary. And to your point earlier, there are people who aren't going to like it, especially if you've
Yeah.
spent many, many years being a yes person and a people pleaser. But trust me, there are so many people who respect you more when you have strong, healthy boundaries. And again, if people do fall away because of your boundaries, they will be replaced by other people. But showing yourself what you are willing and deserve to be treated, again, will change that limiting belief because you truly start to believe after a while, yes, I am important. Yes, I deserve this level of respect. And yes, I'm worthy of it. And then people act accordingly to that. So you draw
Yeah.
on people at that same level. So boundaries are huge. And again, I'm not going to sugarcoat it. When I work with women on boundaries, it's like, yeah, it's hard because you have to enforce them and because people will try to walk all over you. So it is not
Yes,
easy, but it is so worth it.
it is.
So that is number one. Number two, I highly recommend tapping into your intuition if you haven't, because again, it's this magical guidance system inside of us. And so many of us, even me, I'm probably not even as tapped into it as I could be, but it's like all you have to do is plug it in. You don't need
Yeah.
anything outside of yourself. It is within you. And only you know what's best for you. It's okay to get feedback and opinions from other people, but you can just filter that through a lens of discernment. But intuition is the highest level of self-trust. So between boundaries and intuition, you have self-respect and self-trust, and incorporating those behaviors will in turn create different beliefs in your mind of what you deserve and who you are and your confidence. And lastly, I would say, and again, there's probably a list of at least 20
Oh,
things
I'm
I could
sure.
say, but this is the top three. I highly recommend to anybody, I almost just said women, but I would recommend this to anybody. Do at least one thing a day that brings you joy because I think a lot of us just think life is going to work and doing this and doing that
Right.
and being an adult. But, we only have one life and you do deserve to be happy and fulfilled. And you have more control over that than you think, even if you have a full-time job and have all these other
Yeah.
responsibilities. because I tell people, even if I'm strapped for time, I love to dance, and most songs these days are only 3 minutes long. So is only 3 minutes out of your day. It doesn't
Yeah.
have to be this huge time-consuming thing out of your day.
Hell yeah. I'm a queen of saying you teach people how to treat you by how you treat yourself.
Yeah.
And so if you're and the people that I notice have the hardest time with this are moms, right? Because they're I got to put the kids first. I got to put my husband first. I got to put my career first. I got to do all these things first. And I always remind them, well, you're teaching your children that you come last. And so they're going to grow up and do the same thing. They're going to put themselves last. And it's not that you can't consider other people, but if you're not the first person in the people that you're considering, you're abandoning yourself. You're abandoning
Yeah.
yourself.
And that's what I'm not a mom because that's like what a lot of moms will say,
Yeah.
like, oh, but what about my kids or
Yeah.
whatever. So I'm not a mom, but I have a mom. So the example I use is my mom also had no boundaries, and she would put everyone else above her. And so this includes me, right?
Yeah.
But she was angry all the time. And
Just
so all I
resentful.
remember about my childhood is how angry my mom was. And so that affected me in many
Yeah.
ways. And again, yeah, she taught me like, you don't give back to yourself. You don't deserve to give back to yourself. And, all the things. So I have
Yeah.
all of these emotional issues that I had to heal from because of that. So that's the example that I use. It's
Yeah.
like, there's like so many severe consequences that come from that. Whereas if she would have just spent some time filling her cup up first. And another thing I like to point out is because, there was never really any pushback from her. Like if we wanted to go to the mall or whatever, she would be like, okay, yes. And she would make time to do it. But then I never learned delayed gratification or things like that.
Right.
So there's other negative consequences. So I'm like, she actually also took away from our like learning experiences in life.
Right.
Whereas if she actually would have said, like, no, we can't go to the mall this afternoon because I need to take some time for myself, like that actually would have taught me a lesson. She would have had time to refill her cup, and then she would
Yeah.
have been a better role model.
Yeah. And maybe your kids are pissed for a minute because they can't get their way. But at the end of the day, you do that enough, children are going to learn, okay, mom needs time. And when mom has time, mom's probably happier.
Yeah.
You know?
Also, I didn't even realize this till you just said that out loud. I used to not respect other people's boundaries because I never had to respect my mom's boundaries because she didn't have any.
Yeah.
So, yeah, there's so many
That's a
lessons
real good
in.
point right there.
Yeah, but I just
Yeah.
realized that when you said that out loud. Because if she would have said, no, we can't go to the mall, I would have been like,
Yeah. And that's such a good I'm so glad you said that because that is such a good point. And that's why I brought up the topic of moms because, I'm always telling them like we all learn. Humans are sentient beings. We learn through observation and emulation. So they're always watching you. So if you really want to be the very best mom, it isn't by giving them everything they want. It's not by saying yes to everything and you feeling empty and resentful because you're doing things you don't want to do. It's by leading by example, showing them how to be a healthy adult, how
yes,
to live a healthy life. And that does require self respect, boundaries, all of those things, learning how to self regulate your emotions. And so the more women or even men, because I work with men from time to time, but the more people we can reach and really drill that into their consciousness, we literally break huge generational cycles to where we may have children who grow up and have children that know how to have respect, how to respect themselves, how to have good boundaries. I mean, that's the goal at the end of the day.
yeah,
And so you have to start by if you want to be the best, then you have to be the best for yourself. And they're watching and they're emulating that.
yeah, I think that's amazing
Yeah.
advice.
But with the anger thing, that's my cue. Anytime I ever feel resentful, which is anger turned inward, it's because I just did something I didn't want to do, and so I always, when someone asks me if I want to go somewhere or do something or if I can help them or whatever, I always sit with it for a minute and I think, do I really want to do this? And if so, why? Because if I'm doing it because I want them to like me or I want them to be my friend or this or whatever the story is that comes up, then it's like no. But if I can do it because it makes me feel good to be of service and to be a friend to them, and I have zero expectation of anything getting out of it for me, that's a hell yes, you know? And so, and I also live by that motto though. If it's not a hell yes, it's a hell no.
Yeah, I
You know,
love that.
because if there's any
And
kind of inner conflict, you're going to find out real quick why. And, there's moments where I still don't listen to that. I had an experience over the weekend where this last week I had this inner conflict about doing this thing I was supposed to do this last weekend. And I went ahead and did it anyway. But, fuck around and find out. You find out, and you're like, I was like, well, that's why I had the inner conflict. But at the same time, I'm not mad about the experience overall because I learned, I chose myself, and that was like, okay, well, that proved to me that I have done the work because I didn't flip out, I didn't beat myself up, I didn't overreact. I was like, cool, a little bit of an expensive lesson, but I got it. And I'm actually grateful for it because of these other things. And so that's the other part is I always say, don't, when you do mess, I don't even like to call it messing up, but when you do fall in the hole, when you do have those moments where you react instead of respond,
yeah,
don't shame yourself. Don't beat yourself up. Have grace and compassion for yourself.
yeah, self-compassion is huge.
Yeah.
But I love what you're saying about going by how you feel
Yeah.
because I don't know about you, but sometimes as a coach, I struggle with using the term people pleaser because some people haven't even gotten to the awareness of that they realize that's what they are.
Yeah.
But so sometimes people are like, well, how do I know? I'm like, trust me, you just go by how you feel because if you don't feel comfortable or you feel gross or to your point, even resentful, then you know you're doing something that you don't want to do.
Yeah, it's out of that. You're being in touch with your feelings and your body is really such an important guide because if it doesn't feel good, it's not for you.
Yeah,
It's not for you. If it doesn't feel good, you don't need to carry it. And so the more in touch you can become with your emotions, the better off you are. And that's part for me, that's part of tapping into your intuition because you need to listen not just to the thoughts in your head, but to the way your body feels. And when you start to really notice how your body contracts or expands around certain people or when people say
yeah,
something, you're going to start to go, oh, okay, now I can see which way is what is good for me and what isn't good for me. And so those things are really important. And honestly, it just it's about being aware of yourself. It's about slowing down and being mindful. And the more you can do that, the more you're going to hear your intuition. The more you're going to
yeah.
know where you're being guided and where you're not. And if you can't hear it, you're too distracted. You're multitasking. You're doing too many things. You got to slow down. And people think, "Oh, I can't slow down." Honey, you get there faster by slowing down. I hate to tell you.
That is so true. Because I used to always rush with everything, and now I feel
Me
like I
too.
get more done by not rushing.
Yeah, and I know I quit. It's funny when I was in corporate, we used to put on our resumes, excellent multitasker, because that's what they always want. And then I remember I read this study where that takes the brain 15 minutes to switch gears when you're multitasking, and that's why people feel exhausted and like I did all of this, yet I got like nothing done. Well, it's because
Yeah.
your brain, you wasted so much time going back and forth. If you just chose to be present with one thing at a time, it may feel like you're going slower, but you're getting more accomplished.
So there's actually,
There's brain
it's
science
true.
behind it.
Yeah.
Yeah, actual brain science behind it. I mean, it's funny because I don't know. People call me woo woo. I've been called the woo woo queen because I get, in my thing. And I'm like, honestly, there's so much neuroscience that backs what we say anyway. So, yes, there's still a whole lot more that science hasn't discovered yet, right? But that's all science is discovering something that once wasn't discovered,
Yeah.
you know?
I just had this conversation with someone a few weeks ago because he was very science-based and I'm also very woo-woo, but like we were agreeing on so many things. And I was like, I love how, because even 5 years ago, I think it would have been outside of the box to have that conversation, but it
Yeah.
just seemed completely normal. But yeah, woo-woo is actually based in science.
Yeah, it is. 100%. And people who don't believe in energy, I had I had a friend of mine say this one time and it stuck with me and now I use it all the time. It's like, well, do you believe in Wi-Fi? Do you believe in, yeah, it's like, how do you think that happens? How do you think that magical signal goes from a box over there to your phone? Or when you're out in a building, you're able to connect to this invisible signal. That's frequency, that's energy. So you think there isn't that everything isn't communicating with you? Like just this thing? Like if the Wi-Fi can do it, anything else can do it. And it helps people who aren't woo-woo be go, "Oh, okay, this is science. Like there is actual legitimate shit to back this up, you know?"
Yeah, maybe we just need to have more conversations about it.
We do. Yeah, we do. And that's again, that's why, we have podcasts, why we have books, why we have people who go out and speak. Like we have to not stop talking about this stuff. And there might be a million people talking about the same thing, but the way you bring it through is going to be different than the way I bring it through. And the way that
Exactly.
you say it is going to reach someone that isn't going to understand necessarily how I say it. And so it's important to not compare yourself either to in this industry or to anybody really, and just trust that your experience of whatever you're doing is going to change the lens and the way that you speak and act. And there's going to be a certain number of people who are waiting for you to show up and share that because they're only going to be able to understand it from you.
And that's why I'm so big on shining your light
Hmm.
because, there are, I don't even know what the population is anymore, but there's billions of people on the earth
Yeah.
right now. There have been billions of people. There will be billions of people, but we are all unique in a certain way. So that's why it's so important to shine our own lights. Yeah, because we all
Yeah.
have stories and we tell them differently, and there's always someone else who's going to learn from you.
Yeah. And that's what it's all about. What are anything else that you think that you would like to share with anybody who's listening who might be going through a hard time right now or who's just starting on their healing journey? Is there like one or two things that are like those are your go-to things to tell someone when they're not in a great place?
Yeah, well, first of all, I think we covered this, but just to
But yeah,
reiterate, you are not alone, regardless of what you see in real life and social media. Life is hard for everybody, whether you see it or not.
yeah,
And trust me, everybody goes through struggles because once you start having more conversations like this, it comes out what people's struggles are. So, first of all, you are not alone if you are struggling.
don't trust
Another
the social
thing,
media highlight reels.
yeah, trust me. Like, and even I'm sure we all know the people who you actually know what's going on in their life, and then you see what they're posting on social media. So think of all the other people who are doing the
Yeah,
exact same thing.
right.
Um, so you are not alone. Another thing I really want people to know, and this is another reason why I share my story, is there is hope for the future. Because my biggest turning point was I felt so hopeless, and that's such a dangerous place to be.
It
But
is.
again, I think it stemmed from the fact that my life had felt so unhappy and unfulfilling, and I didn't even think a different version of life was available to me.
Yeah,
And I'm telling you, it is. You just need help. Like
yeah,
again, whether it's a coach or I don't want to knock traditional therapy. It just didn't work for me. It didn't work
yeah.
for you.
It could work for you. We're not telling you
That
not to
doesn't
go to
mean it
therapy.
doesn't work.
Yeah,
But I think we alluded to this earlier. Sometimes you just need someone else to point out the patterns and hold your hand for a little bit to fix you and guide you on your journey.
yeah.
So there's no shame in getting help, but there is hope. And another thing I like to point out in that is I even like right before my rock bottom, I started to become more self-aware of the role that I was playing. But even then, I didn't get help because I didn't feel that I was worthy, because it's just like, this is how I deserve to feel.
Yeah,
And that is also not true. So if
right.
you are feeling unhappy and unfulfilled, you deserve to be happy and fulfilled, and that is available to you, and there's hope for the future. So I like to point that out because, again, as a coach, I want to help people, but it doesn't have to be with me. It doesn't have to be with you.
Yep,
Like, just get the
exactly.
help.
Yeah, and I always say something like I always tell people even when I go online and just do just check in with people. I'll go on TikTok and be like, hey, I have some free time. Is anybody struggling with anything? And I'll give them, if they will work through it. But I always say, like, if you don't resonate with me, go find the person that you do resonate with, because at the end of the day, it's not about you hiring me. It's about you getting the help that you need. And all we are lighthouses. We're
Exactly.
showing you what's already inside of you that you can't see. We're shining a light on it. That's what energy healing is. They're using their energy to facilitate yours. Nobody's fixing you. We're guiding you. We're showing you where things are inside of you so that you know where they are. You know how to work with that. And that's at least the quality coaches are doing that, I should say.
Yes.
Yeah. So
Yeah, because it's not fixing anything.
no,
We're just
never.
guiding you back home to yourself.
Yeah. You're at the end of the day, you are the one who's going to be doing the work. We're not doing the work for you. And I've had people, I don't know about you, but I've been doing this for a long time. And I've had people who, that's what they wanted. They're like, I'm just here to be fixed. It's like, well, I can guide you. We can work through in session. But if you're not doing the homework, if you're not doing it outside of us, our 90-minute session, you're not going to progress,
Yeah.
and I watch them, and now I don't put up with it, because it's like, this isn't what I'm here for.
Yeah.
This isn't aligned, because I really want to. And since I put that boundary, not to jump all over the place, but since I put that boundary in place, I've only attracted people who are like, that really, really are in it. They're doing the work. They're showing up to session going, yes, I implemented this. I tried that. This worked. This didn't, and they had progress. And it's like, yes, that's what we're here for. We're here to progress, you know?
And you just beautifully pointed out how strong, healthy boundaries work
Yeah.
because it actually, and it's not only beneficial for you, it's beneficial for the people that you're
Yeah.
working with because you're drawing in that person that's on your same level. And
Yeah.
so the rewards are exponential on both sides.
Yeah. I mean, sure, I could have someone pay me and you just want to sit here and do that, but that's not fulfilling for me.
Yeah.
And so for me at the end of the day, yes, it's great to make money and to be supported and, or to be wealthy. Yeah, absolutely. That's the icing on the cake. But I need the cake first. And the cake is the substance.
Yeah.
It's seeing the light go on behind someone's eyes when they've been so dark and shallow. It's seeing them pop up, like you said when you were telling your coach about the book, brighten up, come to life. Like that's what I live for. I live for
Yeah.
that. That's what fuels me.
Or like seeing the growth in someone else
Yeah,
is so magical.
it is. And going, I've watched so many of my private mentor students that have, left me and gone on out there now doing the same, being a light, shining, even if they didn't go into this industry. I have clients that still are in corporate. I'm watching them implement some of these things into regular muggle society, if we want to call it that, and still making an impact, And so I love watching people who have past mentored with me go on, and I'm always cheering for them. I'm like, I love this so much, because it just shows that, and it's not tooting my own horn. It's like, yes, like they they did the work. And I always remind people at the end of the day or at the end of mentorship, like they're like, "Oh, I'm thank you, so grateful for you." I'm like, "Honey, I didn't do much. Like I was the light. You were willing to be guided. You're the one who did the work.
Yeah.
You're the one who supported yourself. You're the one who chose you and chose the courage to face yourself. Because I'm sure just like you, or I'm sure just like me, you probably have the same experience. It's not easy to look in the mirror when you're in that dark place. When you got to
Yeah.
look back at all the problems, patterns, things, it's not easy to go, shit, it's me. Like I can change this. And I didn't realize that the whole time. It's not
Yeah.
easy to do that.
No, you bring up a good point because, at the end, it is a healing journey and it does make you a better person, but you
Yeah.
have to face some dark
Yeah.
realities to get
Yeah.
through it.
What you look at disappears. So if you're not willing to look at it, that's only going to
Yeah.
get bigger and more impactful until you end up in these moments, which some of us needed. I was the one who needed it. I needed to be smacked down to rock bottom so hard that it cracked me open. It wasn't it wasn't going to go down any other way for me, right? I had repeated the pattern so many times. It was like, okay, we're going to take you down and you're going to sit at the bottom of this dark well and you're going to look up and see a crack of light and you're going to start to go towards it. And that's what happened, you know?
Yeah.
And some of us need that. If that's you, don't, it's
Yeah.
okay.
That's another reason I tell my story though, because if you know you're heading down that path, like just try not to go there
Yeah.
because it's
And
way harder.
it is harder. And that's why it's like, why my whole mission is be the change. And it's like, we have to, by us constantly showing up, repeating our story, showing where we are and how healthy we are now, and sharing the messy, sharing the vulnerability, and it's going, if in hindsight this, in hindsight that, like this is what happened and this is what I did, but now looking back, like I see this, that's what I did in my book. But it's like being able to showcase that for people gives them those little aha moments. It could be one sentence you said in this whole podcast that could totally shift someone's complete trajectory. They might have been heading this way, and you said something and it made them turn just enough that led them on a different path. So it is so important for us to do that because we can interrupt that for other people. But for the ones who didn't or who aren't being interrupted by it, if you're sitting at rock bottom right now, congratulations. It's now you're going to go up.
Yeah, because there's really no other way to go.
No.
I had a friend once, this is a long time ago, I worked with her, but she was working at this travel agency. It was a very low level position. She wasn't making any money. And a lady who worked there in a higher level position, she like hyped her up. She's like, "You're better than this. You need to go to college and get a degree." And she did. And she got her degree. She got a job. She started making better money. And in telling me the story, my friend was like, "Oh, I'm so thankful for her." And I was like, "Did you ever tell her?" And she was like, "No, because it like once she got the degree and got the job and started making money, like that lady was long gone in her past. So she never was able to tell her the impact that she made in her life."
Yeah.
But I would always like to think that through, speaking on a podcast or something else, that I've made an impact like that in someone's
Yeah.
life.
And not they don't always tell us, and that's okay
Yeah.
too. And there's ones who do. I'm sure you've had your people who have told you how
Yeah.
much, your story, your book, your speaking has impacted them. And at the end of the day, you get to a place where we don't need that validation anymore, but it's awesome to hear. Um,
Yeah.
but I look back too, like my high school principal. I mean, she saved my life more times than I can count. My high school principal and my high school guidance counselor had such an impact on me, and they're never going to know it. Well, my principal
Yeah.
will because she's crossed over, so I know she comes and visits me every now and then. But there's a lot of people that never knew. But you can be in the store, and I want to bring it down to the simplest thing. You can be in the store and see a beautiful woman and walk up to her and say, "You are so beautiful today." Or you are so beautiful, or your outfit is stunning, or you're just glowing. And that could change somebody's life. That
Hmm.
could give somebody hope. And I do that. When I go out, I don't care if I'm on a date, I'm with my friends, I will go out of my way. If I notice somebody, and for whatever reason, I don't need to know why I'm being drawn to them. I don't need to know why I feel like God's putting a spotlight on them. I will just notice them and I will feel drawn to just go up to them and be like, "You are so beautiful. And I just wanted you to know that." And
I love that.
you just see people like they're kind of caught off guard and it kind of cracks them open a little bit and you see that them glow a little bit. And some people, I've had a few people that weren't receptive to it, but for the most part, people are very receptive to it. But we are so good at wearing masks in society. Someone could be walking down the grocery store aisle smiling while they're dying inside because I was
Oh,
that
yeah.
woman. You were probably that woman. And so to
Yeah.
have someone do that, it's like sharing it's like a candle igniting another candle.
Yeah.
And so don't think that you have to become someone like us, that you have to write a book, that you have to get on the stage, that you have to do those things. You can simply just when you see someone out in the world that you think is beautiful, you love their hair, you love their eyes, you love their outfit, tell them. Just tell them.
And there's actually a saying, trying to think of it, I think it's a candle loses nothing by lighting another candle because you just
No.
use the candle analogy and it's
Yeah.
yeah, it's the same concept
You
because
just
it's like
it just
you're already
brightens
lit
more.
up, you're
Yeah.
just passing it on.
If anything, it just makes the whole space bright. It makes everything brighter.
Yeah,
right? It doesn't, by you doing that, it doesn't diminish your light at all.
exactly.
Yeah. And so I always like to, in fact, I think this is probably the first time I've ever shared that, but I love to do that.
I'm gonna start doing that. I
Yeah.
especially the world is
It's
there's a
such a
lot of
weird
like
place
fear
right
and
now.
anger and yeah, so anything we can do to raise the vibration
Yeah. And
helps.
and we're so online focused, right? With everything. And so people don't interact the same way that they used to 20 years ago. And
Yeah,
so letting someone, put their chin up and look at you in the eye when you say something like that, having that interaction, having that moment of connection, it seems like such a small thing, but it I don't do it for any other reason than it just feels so good to me to do that and see someone smile. And I don't even need to know if they were having a bad day.
yeah,
It doesn't matter to me. I'm drawn to them. But it could be their worst day, and the same with if someone is in the grocery store and they're being rude or whatever. It doesn't mean you don't have boundaries and self-respect, right? It doesn't mean tolerate what they're doing, but you don't know what's going on in their life. So just start with kindness and compassion.
yeah,
But again, you need to have the boundary. I'm not saying take disrespect, but at the same time, remember that we never know what's going on behind closed doors or behind closed bodies. You just don't know.
exactly.
Yeah. Well, it's been so amazing talking with you. I think I could talk to you for hours.
I know.
I feel so connected to you. Please tell everybody where they can find you and where they can find your book. And do you have a copy of it that we can see?
Um, Actually I do. Hold on.
Okay.
It's like right behind me and I'll tell you why.
Okay.
Hold on. I'm leaving to go on vacation tomorrow. I'm going to Spain and Morocco, and I'm like, oh, I need to bring copies of my book. So this
Yes.
is what it looks
Running in
like, running in
slippers.
slippers.
Which are
Um,
what did you say slippers are? Because you're in Hawaii.
oh yeah, so just to explain the title, I live in Hawaii, so flip-flops are called slippers. So it really means running in flip-flops. And I explain how I came up with the title in the introduction of the book, so I won't give that away.
Okay.
But running in flip-flops is a metaphor for life because it can be fun, adventurous, and playful. It can also be scary, dangerous, and painful. So
Yes.
that's overall what it means. And my website is runninginslippers.com. So you can find information about the book. It's available on paperback, Kindle, and audiobook. There's also information on my coaching program, which is called Shine from the Inside. And I help high achieving women stop chasing and performing for love and acceptance so they can finally feel happy, confident, and free for who they are. And I do offer a free, I call it a glow up session. It's a 60-minute call, and on the call, we can work on whatever you're struggling with. We'll get through as much as we can on the call. And at the end, I will give you recommendations for going forward. Because again, I am not for everyone. My coaching program is not for
Yes.
everyone, but I know other coaches. I have other resources. So if it's not a good match, I can refer you to someone else who can help you. Because again, the whole goal is to get help. It doesn't
Yes.
even necessarily have to be with me.
That's amazing that you do that. I don't do it for free. I have an intro price, and that makes it available to a lot more people. But
Yeah,
there was a time that I did as well. But I love that you do that because you're right. You can have one session with someone and realize this is not a match. We're
exactly.
not aligned. So that's amazing. So you guys, all that information that she just shared will all be linked in the description of the podcast below. Please go find her on social media, go check out her website, pick up her book. If you are a fan of me, you're gonna be a fan of her because we
Agreed.
have similar language, and I'm sure she has a whole lot more to offer that we didn't even touch the surface on.
Yeah, I could have talked to you for like 2 hours.
I know. Well, maybe we'll have you back and we'll talk about something new.
Yeah, I love that.
Well, thank you so much for being here. I am just so grateful. And gosh, please enjoy that trip. And yes, bring some of your books because that'll be fun.
Yeah, I need to sprinkle myself around the world.
Exactly. Yes, sprinkle that light. All right, my loves, I will see you in the next episode. Hey, thanks for listening. This episode was brought to you by johannaburkhart.com, where it's time to defy the limits of your mind and step into your multidimensional mastery. Don't forget to subscribe so that you never miss an episode. See you next time.